So just to give a quick recap of what we have done so far, I think we spoke about cloud computing, how Salesforce applies to, falls into that category. And then I think we also spoke about CRM cycle. We all signed up for Salesforce. We also saw why we call Salesforce as a CRM application, and we tried to understand what CRM application means. And then I think we spoke about how leads are created, how account contact opportunity. We spoke about B2B, B2C scenarios, and we also tried to understand that the current Salesforce application or the by default application, whatever we see, is built for B2B scenarios, business to business scenarios. That's why we see accounts and contacts, whereas accounts represent the entities, business entities, and contacts represents the people that work for those business entities. Then we spoke about multi-tenancy, like what multi-tenancy means and what are the features of multi-tenancy, like, many clients living in the same instance and hence using the same shared resources. And then Salesforce have something called governor limits where in order to prevent the monopolization of shared resources, so one person's mistake wouldn't impact everybody else. So that's why they have something called governor limits in place that would prevent people from exploiting the resources. Okay, so that's one. Now, I just want to talk about some of the advantages of multi-tenancy. I mean, we spoke about not the disadvantage, but we spoke about one cautious step, what we need to follow. But I just want to talk about one of the advantage of using multi-tenant architecture is, let's go back to the example, like, we spoke about the apartment example, right, where we have an overhead tank and everybody is using it. Let's assume that, somebody or the, apartment management decided that they would add some water purifying powder in that water. Okay. So what happens if because the water purifying powder is added, would the result be enjoyed by everybody or not? Everybody doesn't have to, like all individual houses or all individual flats doesn't have to add those water purifying powder again. So just because it's added at one source, it is enjoyed by everybody. Now, similarly, in Salesforce, what happens is, so we are like right now, we are in winter 18 release. Okay, so winter 9. So similarly, what Salesforce does is every year they do 3 major releases. Okay, so when I say 3 major releases, just like if you are using an iPhone, you get a notification called software update, right? From Apple, you get a software update notification, and where you click the button and the software gets updated. Or sometimes they release the new iOS 10.1 to 11.1 or something like that. So when you click a button and when you connect, it's getting upgraded. Now what's happening is Apple is doing a control, like they are giving you an option. They are saying they are sending you an update, and only on your permission when you click, that the software is getting updated. Okay. Now, similarly, Salesforce also does 3 releases every year. So, Salesforce want to keep updated with whatever that's going on. So, in order to keep updated, they do 3 major releases. Like when I say major releases, each release has almost 400 to 500 pages of release notes. Like all the features, what are the features? I'll just show you an example of one of the release notes. So Spring 19 release note. So this is like the latest one. This is the release that is about to.
Shravan, I can't see your screen.
Oh, sorry. I almost forgot this. Can you see it now?
Yeah, now I can see. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, all I did was I just Googled Spring 19 release notes Salesforce. Okay. So Spring 19 release Salesforce. And if you see, so this is the 461 pages of new features. So Salesforce is going to give all these new features Now, like in the upcoming release, they're going to give all these 461 pages of new features. Okay. Now, will all the features be useful for us? We don't know. Like when we are working in a company, we'll just go through these release notes again. There are like 461 pages of all the release notes. And now Salesforce does these releases every 3 months, every 4 months, 3 releases in a year. Salesforce does 3. So they have spring release, summer release, and winter release. So now it's spring, they do one in summer, and they do at the end of the year, which is called winter release. So spring, summer, and winter. So spring 19, summer 19, and winter 20. So that's how they organize their releases. So every year they do 3 releases with all these features. Now, let's say if you are an on-premise solution, let's say we are building an application in Java or .NET, and if something changed, some version is changed or a new version of Java is released, all that, we need to upgrade ourselves as a company that we are hosting the application. We need to upgrade it ourselves. Whereas because we are in multi-tenant architecture, what Salesforce does is, I'll show you. Okay, sandbox preview instructions, right? So if you see this spring 19 release preview instructions, I mean, you don't have to note down all the URLs or anything. I mean, once you get there, you will automatically know this. So I'm going to show you sandbox instruction. You see, they are telling us clearly. Remember, I showed you the sandbox instance, right? So which instance will be upgrade to Spring 19? So on January 4, 2019, all these instances will move to Spring 19. So we'll move to Spring 19 means what? That means, like here, see, there are some instances. All these instances will get Spring 19 and January 4. All these instances will get Spring 19 on February 8th or 9th. So that means all the 460 pages that we saw, all the new features that we saw will be automatically available in all these instances from Jan 4. That means we are already on Jan 4, so they are already available in all these instances. So in February, in these instances, on February 8th or 9th, all those 461 pages of new features will be automatically available. So we don't have to click a button. We don't have to do anything. Those features are automatically available by default. Okay. See, that's the advantage of multi-tenant architecture, where, we don't have to take care of upgrading our server or changing anything. So once the upgrades are available, Salesforce will automatically do it for us. Okay, and hence we don't have to spend any resources or anything to be able to get those new features, upgrade those new features. All the features, all the platform features will be available for us, even though we use them or not. Like out of 461 pages, we might be working on an app that might need only few things. Okay, so. No, don't worry about it. I know people get nervous like, oh man, 461 pages of new features, that too thrice a year. How much studying that we have to do? I mean, it'd be great if we study, if we keep up with all the releases. But the good thing about Salesforce is Salesforce publishes so much documentation on how to do things, how to configure things, what are the new features. Salesforce does so much documentation, and all the documentation is up to date. So let's say if you are looking for how to upload picture, how to upload the picture in the app, if you Google that, previously if it was one way, but now currently if it is done in a different way, Salesforce always shows you the latest way of doing it. So, even if there is a feature that's available and you are not aware of it, when you try to Google the documentation, Salesforce automatically gives you the latest documentation, and hence we will always mostly be following the latest features. Okay, so that's the advantage of multi-tenancy, where the upgrades or the new features that are given to us, once they make in that instance, all those upgrades are automatically done. Like you wouldn't even notice that they are done. So That's the advantage. I mean, again, the disadvantage, I wouldn't call it disadvantage, but one point to be considered is if somebody is using the resources more than more than that's needed, in order to prevent the monopolization, Salesforce will shut down. I mean, shut down means that piece of transaction will be cut off. Any questions so far? Okay. Now, before we move forward, I asked you guys to upload the picture. Did you guys do it? Did anybody do it?
I tried to do it, Shravan, but somehow, I mean, when I tried, it says like this is a standard app. You can't customize that logo or label. But but someone when I googled it, someone like, they told me. I mean, I saw a post like he has to create a logo and then upload a document. But somehow I can't. I'm not able to do that.
Okay.
Seven, I was able to,
Sorry?
but seven I tried and I was able to for any app. But is it confined to only app, or we can do it for a whole account or something like that?
No, we can only do this image at an app level.
Okay, then we have to do for all the apps if company wants to.
No. Huh? Yeah, I mean, see, company will not use all the apps, right? Like probably each company will have 1 or 2 apps launched on Salesforce. If company wants to do all apps, every app will have its own purpose, right? Like all the apps will not do the same thing. And I'm sure every app will have their own purpose, and every app might have a different image requirement, and they will be using different image for a different app. Like how many apps do you think they will host? Yeah, they will probably host at a maximum of 4 or 5 apps or 10 maximum, and I don't think it's that hard uploading those 10.
Okay, so logo is app specific.
Yes, logo is app specific. Okay, now we will get there, but I just want to show you now. So what I will do.
One more thing. I mean, if we do it in Lightning, will that one reflect in Classic?
I think it should. We can check it out. That's a good question. I've never tried that, but see all those things, right? Yeah, we'll do it in Lightning. We'll just switch back to Classic and see if it happened or not. If it does not, we'll upload in Classic too.
Okay.
I don't know the answer. I'm assuming it should, but I don't know the answer. Okay. So here is how I will do. So I'll go to setup. I'll type in app. I'll just go to app manager here. Now, this is just we will get the navigation piece and everything. So you see here, we have 2 apps here. Sales, which is the app type is Classic, and Sales, which is Lightning Sales. So Niranjan, I think the answer for your question is, if you upload your picture here, it would appear in Classic. If you upload your picture here, it would appear in Lightning.
Yeah, I uploaded in Lightning only, so when I switched back to Classic, I was not able to see. So
yeah, so you can see it here. You have both options here. So what I'll do is I'll go to the Lightning one. I'll see here. I'll go click edit, and you see you have an image upload option. I don't have any images here, but if you have an image here, you can upload, and you can also change colors. Let me change to red. That's right. Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, you can upload the image here. I think when you're uploading the image, they will ask us to store that in documents first, right? Or did they ask? Yeah, this is good actually. So they are asking us to upload the image, and if we upload the image directly and hit save, you should be able to see the image there. But I think they have some restrictions on how much size the image should be. I think you need to see it shouldn't be more than 5 MB, and that's 128 by 128, 128 by 128 pixel, and it shouldn't be more than 5 MB. So those restrictions. If you upload it here, that'd be there. I'll try to upload it later by having some image on my. Okay, I think somebody sent me. Shiva, is that you? So you sent me. Did you do it right away here, or did you go through the process of what we discussed? Shiva? Shiva, did you do something like this? Like, did you inspect the element here and change the image right here, or did you upload it the way that I showed you, like going to App Manager and upload it? Shiva, are you there? Because I think your email suggested that, for some reason your email suggested you are looking at the elements, and I think you changed something here, which is not the right way of doing it. Because the problem with that is, if you do an inspect element here, and if you change the URL here, I know you can do that, but it wouldn't persist. If you just refresh the page, it would go away. Like, this is for testing purpose. That's a good option to inspect the element and change it. Like, for example, if you're on home here, you can click inspect element, and you can change the text. Yeah, instead of home, you can see it as Shravan, whatever it is. But of course, we are not making the change on the actual server. So when you refresh it, it won't persist. So I think for some reason your screenshot indicated me that you have done that. It's a good try. Of course, it's a good try. But I think you should be, in order to persist this, because whenever you log in, whenever any user log in, that image have to show up there. So I think we need to go to the app manager and upload the picture there, rather than, just doing it with the inspect element and temporarily changing the URL. Okay. All right. Now, let me just go to sales. Any questions so far? Anybody has any questions so far? All right. So let's talk about, like I mentioned, the agenda of today's session is database introduction. So I just want to talk about database introduction. Now, one thing that I realized, I started as a non-programmer in IT, and I started working in Salesforce. One thing that I realized is, especially in IT, you always get carried away with buzzwords. When I say buzzwords, people tend to talk about some, fancy words, apps, deployments, database, relation. Like, people tend to talk about all those things. But when you realize what actually that is, you feel like, oh man, they're using such a crazy big word for just a simple thing. Okay. So, usually I tend not to get carried away with the buzzwords, and I would try to understand what exactly it does, all this. But after a couple of years of experience, again, just like everybody, I ran around release notes. I started watching YouTube videos and all. Everybody has their own way of teaching things. Everybody has their own way of training things. But on my own, after 1 to 2 years of experience, I realized knowing the database is the most important thing. That's it. Like, knowing the database, how the data is stored, how the data is stored, in which structure the data is organized, and how one table is related to each other. If you know this, That's it. I mean, no matter which technology you work on, whether you work on Salesforce or any other technology, if you know how to work with the database or how to design the schema, I mean, given a scenario, like if we give you a scenario, if you know how to design the database design, okay, in order for the, remember what we spoke about? What is an application? An application is nothing but a data repository with UI controls. Now, data repository is nothing but the data can be anything, like, depending on the type of the application. For example, I work for a healthcare company. So healthcare company, what do? We store patient's information. We store, the nurse's information. We store within the patient information. We store, like, first we store patient demographic information, like what is the patient first name, last name, what is the age, what is the height, and those things. And then we store assessment information. When I say assessment, whether patient has any injuries or not. That's one. That's injury. Whether patient has any allergies or not. If they have any allergies, what are the different type of allergies that the patient have? Whether patient have any, we capture all that information. Now, capturing that information is nothing but, it's not like we are storing that in a database. Now, when we are storing that in a database, we need to store it in a schematic way. Like, we need to store it in a proper, proper organized way so that we can retrieve it very easily. We can retrieve it with confidence, and also we can report on it. Like, remember I mentioned how top management can make decisions. Only they can report on the data on how much sale that they made. Only when they can report on it, that's when they will be able to make certain decisions. Now, the data have to be organized in a proper way. Data have to be organized in a proper way in order to do all those. Okay. Now, think about this. Let's think about this. Let's talk about organizing for a minute. Okay. I think every small business, even the street side shop back in India, they also maintain some credit books, and just imagine, what do? Let's say you have a credit in that shop. So what do? They will write your name, and they leave 2-3 pages empty for you, and they will write some other. See, that's one way of organizing. The reason being, let's say they write your name. Oh, they didn't leave any space. They only wrote whatever you bought now, and some next customer comes and they write their name. Is it proper organizing? No. Why are they leaving 2-3 pages for one person? Because they know this person is going to do number of transactions. So let's leave 2-3 pages apart and then write another person's name, so that all the transactions that are made by him can be at one place and the calculations can be easier. See, that's good organizing for a very tiny small scale shop. I mean, it can be organized in a better way, of course. Like there are journal books which can be handwritten. It can be organized, but for them it works, and they are able to maintain that bookkeeping in a better way. Now, imagine a multinational company or a multi-billion-dollar company, like leaving those spaces, writing in the pages, or maintaining an Excel sheet. That doesn't work. The data have to be so properly organized so that it can be always be retrieved, it can be related, it can be reported, for all these things. Now, that's why no matter, see, whether you can use Classic, you can use Lightning, you can use SAP, you can use Oracle, you can use whatever technology it is, or you can use web component, you can use anything. Ultimately, what are we trying to do? We are trying to, one, provide a user interface like this. You see, we are trying to provide a user interface so that data can be captured. You see, all these fields, what are we doing? The moment we hit save button, this data will be captured in the database. Or provide a user interface to see the existing data. Okay? So no matter which technology that we use, which app that we use, whatever we use, we might be building UI to be able to, we are building UIs to interact with the database. Either it's input or output. Now, so the UIs might change. The UI technologies might change. There kind of all these things be changed. But if we understand the back-end concept of database correctly, like how do we design the data model, given a scenario, given a situation, how do we design the data model? If we are good with that, nobody can, like, whatever technology, whatever your technology, lightning, classic, those things doesn't matter as long as we are good with that basic concept of database. And that's what I realized after working 1.5 years. Like, you know what? If I know the database very well, if I know how tables are connected, if I know how the connections are made with one table to another, and if I am able to design, when somebody comes up with a business scenario, if I am able to design, okay, this is how the database should look like, these are the tables that are needed, these are the columns that are needed, this is how one table should be related to another, that's it. All other things rest of all the things are will automatically fall into place once you know that. Now, this is applicable for anybody. This is applicable for administrator, business analyst, testers, anybody. Because even for a business analyst to do their job well, they need to understand. Like a business analyst with the idea, a business analyst with the idea of database and data modeling writes the requirements so differently than a business analyst without the knowledge of database. Because ultimately, business analysts are going to write the requirements and give it to developers. And developers are the people who are going to build those or develop those requirements. Now, if the requirement is written by a BA who has good understanding of database, it is so easy for developers to build that. But if the requirements are written, but the data modeling knowledge is not applied there, developers will always feel weird. Man, how can this be possible? How would I develop this? You know what? This logic is not at all possible in the relational data model. So, there will be those conflicts and to and fro. That's why a BA with database knowledge writes the requirements in a totally different way than a BA without that knowledge, or even administrators or developers, like anybody, no matter anybody who wants to work in IT. You know what? If I have kids, I want my kid to learn about database and relational database when they're in 5th grade or 6th grade. Not the whole complex one, but just, the concept of it so that they can apply it in so many places, in their life. That's how the basic concept it is, but, it has so many uses, not exactly in IT, in so many areas. The way you think, the way you think about how things work are all linked to it. Okay? Now, let's talk about that example. Let me just clean this up. Okay, let's talk about a scenario. Now, let's say you own a company. Let's say you own a company and you want to capture employee data. So, you own a company and you have lots of employees working for you. So, you want to capture employee data. Just think about this. You own a company and you have employees who are working for you. Just think about what kind of information that you would capture about those employees. Like, you need to maintain a list of employees that work for you. Like, so what are some of the important information that you would want to capture about those employees?
Like his name, gender, email, phone number.
Good. So probably you would want to capture their first name, last name, email, phone. Maybe you would capture address. Address can be street 1, street 2, city, state.
Employee ID.
That's good. Employee number or ID. Okay. Probably their designation, like their title, like what do they do in the company, right? I'll say designation. Okay. So if you are trying to capture the information, you would want to, let's say you would want to maintain an Excel sheet, and in that Excel sheet, you would probably want to say, okay, you would name the Excel sheet as employees, and you'd say first name, last name, email, phone, street to city, state, employee number. Yeah, maybe zip code as well, city, state, zip code, employee number, their designation. Okay, this is good. I mean, this is good information. So now, what would you then start doing here? So here probably you will start. You'll type in some street address, street 2, city, state, employee number is probably 111, designation is done. Whatever it is, it can be. So if you now, when a second person comes, if there is another employee, you will enter the information here. You will enter the information here. Like, you keep on increasing, adding the rows. Now, let's talk about this in database terms, okay? So this employees is nothing but it's a table, okay? In Salesforce world, we call this table as an object, okay? In Salesforce, whenever you hear the word object, it means it's a table, okay? So whenever you hear the word, I mean, you will be hearing it. It'd be like, oh, this object, that object needs a field, this object needs a field, this object should change, something like that. So you will hear the word object 1,000 times a day if you're working in Salesforce. So whenever you hear the word object, they are talking about a table in Salesforce, okay? Now, look at this. Here we are talking about employees table. So this Excel sheet here, this worksheet here represents a table here, okay, which in Salesforce it's nothing but a object. See, each of this, what is this? This represents a column. First name is a column, last name is a column, email is a column, phone is a column. I mean, you know that. And this whole thing, this whole thing is a row, okay? So this row is also known as a record, okay? We call this row as a record in Salesforce, okay? This column is called as a field, the column first name, column last name, column email, column phone. So all these columns are called fields, of course, these are fields. And this whole thing, this entire data is known as a row, okay? So let me use some other name, or let me do this. So the ID is 22222. I'll just say BA. Okay. So I can keep on adding the rows here, right? So rows is nothing but, this is nothing but a record. This is nothing but a record. Okay. Now, so let's say if I have, okay, let's say if I have another Shravan, I'm sure if you're working for such a big company, there might be people with same first name and last name. So if I have a same another Shravan Pinindi, how do we differentiate between the person in row number 2 versus the person in row number 4?
Employee number.
That's good. Good. Is there any other way we can identify? Email as well, right? Like email is also, of course, any mailing service doesn't allow us to create duplicate emails. So either you can identify by using email, but employee number is a good choice. Okay. So it can be spp@mail.com, all the information filled, and it can be this one. Okay. And this person might be a developer too. Okay. You see here, employee number. What it is doing, employee number is unique for every row. Like here, this is a row, This is a row. In Salesforce terms, we call it as a record. And this record every record have to be identified uniquely. Okay? Why? Because all the columns that you might have been, all the columns that you have might be same, but there has to be a unique way of identifying each row or differentiating each row from other. Otherwise, there is no point, right? So you need to know each, like if just because last name and first name is different. Let's say somebody asks you, hey, you know what? Give a hike for Shravan Pininti. Okay, let's say somebody asks you write a program or using some application. You built an application that is used to manage your salaries, and you want to give a hike for one of the Shravan Pininti. Imagine one is super efficient and one is one doesn't work at all. So you want to give salary to a super efficient guy. How would you do that? In your application, in order to increase the salary, there has to be a way to be able to individually identify, right? Just because their first name and last name are same, doesn't mean, you give hike to a different person accidentally. So there has to be some kind of column here, somewhere here that should uniquely help us. Okay, now here employee number is a unique identifier. You'll say, okay, you know what? I need Shravan Pininti with employee number 111111. Give him hike. Okay, for 3333, fire him or whatever it is. So just because first name and last name, you're not confused. So every database should have some integrity. Like we use the term called data integrity. It should have the data integrity, and every row should have a unique identifier using which we will be able to identify the rows. In here, we use employee number, which is great. But in Salesforce, what do we have is we have a column called ID. Okay, this ID is a 18-digit auto-generated number. I mean, not number, it's a string actually. So what happens whenever a row is created, you don't have to do anything. The moment you hit save, a 18-digit, like some gibberish number like this, a string is generated. So it is unique for all the rows. Okay. So even though you don't have a column like this, employee number column like this, let's say you just created a table. Let's say you just created a table with first name and last name. That's it. You don't have anything else. Okay. You don't have all these columns. You only have a table that is created with first name and last name. And still, even though you created it, every row is different, right? Even though you only have two columns, and those two columns have the same value, Shravan Pininti and Shravan Pininti, but still those are two individual different rows in the database. How would you identify? Salesforce will automatically create a 18-digit ID for this row and a 18-digit ID for this row. Okay. So just to maintain that, just to show that there are two unique records that exist in the system. Okay. So let's see what that 18-digit is in action. Okay. You see this number here in the URL. Observe the URL. I opened a record. Observe the URL. So that is the 18-digit ID that is created for this record. Okay, for this row. Let's actually talk about columns and everything first of all. So you see new. You see here this employees, right? Employees is nothing but a table. Okay, this is represented by a tab here. So if you click on opportunity tab, the opportunity tab is nothing but this one. You can create another called account. Sorry, not there. You can create another worksheet named contact. You can create another worksheet named opportunity. Okay. So you created a worksheet named opportunity, and the opportunity will have columns like name, stage, close date, amount. So you put the name as Avega says, stage is closed last, some close date, amount is 200,000, like this, and automatically ID. ID is automatically generated by Salesforce like this. So then you have enterprise opportunity, stage is closed 1, and you have this unique number generated. Okay, so you see this. Actually, this whole Excel sheet can be considered as an application or a database. Okay, within that, each of this worksheet is representing a table. Okay, a table, also in Salesforce known as object. Okay, now each of the column represents a field, and each of the row represents a record. Okay, I know these are like too many terms, but just let's see this in action. So I click new. So hold on, let me click the opportunity tab. So opportunity tab, I clicked it here. So I'm looking at the database structure. Here in the front end, I'm looking at this. When I click new, you see I get the columns like opportunity name, stage, what is the amount, what is the close date. Okay, see, name, stage, close date, amount, all these are representing, like all these fields here are representing columns in the database. Okay, so let's say I type in test opportunity. Observe the URL as well once. Okay, amount I'll say 100,000, close date I'll just say today, and stage is prospecting. Okay, so I filled in this information just like this. Okay, here I'll represent it here. So I filled in information like test opportunity, stage name is prospecting, close date I put it as today, and then I put the amount as 100,000. Okay, so now what I'll do, I hit save. I'll just click save. So save means what I'm doing, the moment I hit save, I'm saying write this information, whatever information that I have here, write this to the database is what I'm saying. Write all the information that is here, make sure it is written to the opportunity table. So when I hit save, automatically what happened, look at the URL. Salesforce automatically generated an ID for me, a 18-digit gibberish ID. I mean, it follows, I think, 64-bit encrypted ID. So this is the ID that is generated for me by Salesforce. Okay. Now, no matter what fields you have, even though in the tables that you create, you might already have unique identifiers. Just like in the employee table that we decided to create, we already have a unique identifier called employee number, but Salesforce doesn't care about it. Automatically, you cannot change the ID. It's a read-only field. So whenever any record is created, this ID will automatically be generated, and that is assigned to this row. Now, you can come here. See, for this opportunity, you can come here and change this 100,000 to 200,000 and hit save. Will the ID change? No. When you hit, all you're trying to do is you're trying to update the existing record. So observe the URL. It's 8 QAM. So if you go and edit, change this to 200,000, it's the same row. You are just modifying the same row, but you are not creating any new rows. You know what I mean? So see, that's why the ID is still same, because the row is still same. You are just changing the data. Instead of test opportunity, you might want to call it something else. Instead of amount 200,000, you might want to change it to 250,000. What you are changing the you are trying to change the values of the existing. You are trying to update the existing record. Okay, you are not changing, like you are not creating a new record. You are trying to update the existing record, and hence the ID still remains the same. It would just be changing this. Now you want to delete a row. Let's say you go here, you delete a row. So now what happened, you see, instead of 3 rows or 4 rows, you're only seeing 3. Even here, it would be like you are deleting a row. Now the ID would be removed from the database. Okay, the row is completely removed from the database, so the row doesn't exist. So you're deleting here, nothing means the deletion here is nothing means the row is getting removed from the database. So let me open these 2 records in 2 different tabs. Okay, so you see enterprise car rental, it's 6 QAM. It is like NQAM is Avega 6. Okay, all I do is just copy this ID, replace it with this one. See, automatically it will load the enterprise. So, or I'm somewhere here in Salesforce, I just remove the whole thing. I'll just copy the ID that I have and click enter. It would automatically open me the page. So because, see, the ID is so tied, like ID of the record is so tied to the user interface that as a developer or as an admin, you'll breathe, eat, sleep IDs. Okay, so the ID is such an important thing. It's a unique identifier. That means if you have an ID, that's it. You are able to identify what record in the system it is. Okay, so automatically, that's why, like, you know, I'm just copying the ID. I'm removing, like, I'm somewhere in the home page. See, I'm in the home page. All I'm doing is I'm just removing this piece. After the slash lightning.force.com, I'm just pasting the ID and clicking enter. So what happened? It's automatically, Salesforce is automatically taking me to what you call the record which I'm supposed to. So it's a 18-digit ID, and you know this. You see these first 3 digits. The first 3 digits represent which table it is. Okay. So all the opportunity records the ID of all the opportunity records will always start with 006. No matter, like, you can create 1 million, 2 million records. These pieces might change. The rest of the 15 characters might change, but the first 3 digits will always be 006. So the first 3 digits in the ID represents which object it is. Okay. Similarly, go to account. If you go to account, it is 001. You can take any account possible. All the accounts will always start with 001. So you take any ID in Salesforce, any 18-digit ID in Salesforce, the first 3 digits in the ID represent which object they belong to. Okay. So now, coming back again. So an Excel sheet, consider an Excel sheet as the whole database. Okay. Now in that, these are called tabs. Okay. We call them as, see, this is an opportunity tab. This is an account tab. This is a contact tab. So what are tabs used for? Tabs are used to access a specific object. Like, you know, I'm using opportunity tab. When I click on it, I'm going to opportunities. When I click accounts tab, I'm going to access accounts. When I click contacts tab, I'm accessing contacts. So tabs are a user interface medium to be able to interact with an object. Okay. So by clicking the tab, I'm accessing. In the same way, you see here, these worksheets are nothing. You know, you can call these as tabs because by clicking on it, I'm going, like, you know, I'm able to access that table. Okay. So tabs represent this. Okay. And each field here, like each column here, represent a field. Okay. Each column here represent a field on the table. Like, you know, these are called fields. This is opportunity name field. This is amount field. This is type field. This is, you know, these are fields. Okay. And then the whole thing, this whole thing is a row. Like this is a row. Similarly here, if you see this whole thing, this whole thing is a row. Like we call it as a row in the, it's a row. It's just that the organization in the UI is different, but the whole data, you know, all the data belonging to this ID is represented or showed in a different column, but ultimately in the database, it is stored like this. Okay. Now, any questions on what a column is, what a row is, what an ID is? I know it's too confusing, like column, row, field, all that. But if you use the application for a couple of days, you will easily get used to it. But I just want you to understand the difference between the whole thing. Any question? If you want, we can create the employees table. We will create a sample employees table. Don't worry. We will create a sample employees table exactly like this to determine, just to show you how the ID generation and all those things work. But did you understand why there is a column called ID is needed? Okay, in order to maintain the database integrity, we need a column named ID, so that we definitely need an ID so that every row is uniquely, the name of the column itself is ID, identification. So that we can uniquely identify every row in the table. Okay. You can have as many columns as you want, like you can have different data types and everything, but ultimately the identification number is there. And in Salesforce, not all technologies, I do not know about other technology databases, but within Salesforce, no matter what, whenever you create any row in a table, like any row in the object, it would automatically generate a 18-digit unique ID for us. And the first 3 digits in that ID represent which object that record belongs to. So if you see anywhere 00610, you can always say, oh, okay, this is an opportunity record, because 006 represents opportunity. 001 represents account. I think contact has 003. Let's see. Yeah, contact is 003. So 003, all the contact records will have 003. So the first 3 digits represent the object which it belongs, and all other digits are like, some gibberish numbers. But every row here is unique. Like you can create exact same record with all the same details, but still it would be 2 different IDs will be generated, because every row will contain an ID. Guys, any questions so far? Anybody? Okay. We'll just take 3-4 minutes break, and then I'll continue with some more things on the database. Okay. All right, guys. Any questions so far on the table or object or ID generation? Okay. So, just for the sake of data model, let's create an object. Okay. This is we won't use it anywhere, so I'll just quickly create it. Okay. But you can see the steps. So I'll just say setup. You see object manager here. I'll go to object manager. Once I click setup, I'll go to object manager, and I'll just create an object called a custom object, and I'll name it as. Okay, I just want to give you a clarity on what is a custom object and a standard object. Okay. See, Salesforce has a concept of standard objects and custom objects. Objects, like I said, objects are nothing but tables, right? So what are custom objects versus standard objects? So if you look at this, we already have all these tables in the system, right? Like opportunity, accounts. So when you sign up, the moment you signed up, the moment we signed up for Salesforce, these are already given out of the box for us, like account table, lead table, opportunity table, task table, files table, contacts table, campaign table. All these are given to us by default. So all the objects that are already given to us as part of SaaS, software as a service, all the objects that are already given to us out of the box are called as standard objects. Okay. So any object or any table that we create ourselves is called as custom object. Of course, we are customizing it. So any table or object that we create ourselves is called as custom object. Any object that's already given to us are nothing but standard object. Okay. So I'll show you one difference to here. Okay. So label is employee. So we are trying to create, whatever employee table that we did here, we are trying to recreate it. So plural label will be employees. Yeah, start with the vowels on, yes. Okay, so this description, I'll just say this object is used to store employee data. Okay. Now we'll talk about this name field and all those things. So what happens is in Salesforce, when you are creating a table, right, like this, when you are creating a table, ID, of course, is automatically generated. You cannot create an empty table. You know what I mean? So I'll show you like this. See, you cannot create a table like this. You're trying to create a table called employees table, and you cannot create a table without any column. So the first column, Salesforce enforces you to create one column, and it is called as a name column. Okay, so the name. So we are calling it as employee name. So it is so even before we go to creation of fields and everything, while creating the object itself, Salesforce enforces you to create a column, okay, and it's called as name column. So I'll also create a tab. We'll come to that piece, how and all that. I'll come to this piece where, what I'm doing right now. While we are building a custom app, now we are only trying to understand what the database model is. So don't try to see all the. Okay, so right now what we did is we created an object or a table name as employee. You see the API name here? The name of the table, we created it as employee, but Salesforce automatically created it with _C. It appended something called _C. So this _C is nothing but it indicates that this is a custom object. Okay, so it indicates this C stands for custom. _C indicates that the employee table or the employee object that we created is a custom object. It is not out of the box. It is not automatically given to us by Salesforce. So it is the custom object that we get. See, the label is employee, but the API name is employee _C. What is mean by API name? API stands for Application Programming Interface. So API name is nothing but whenever we are referencing this table, whenever we are referencing this object in code or in any logic, we always use the API name. Okay, API name is a unique name. That means you can create, you can create another object name as employee, but Salesforce will not allow you to create that object with the API name as employee _C. So that API name is unique for this object, whatever employee table that we created, it is unique for this object. You can create another object with the label employee, but it should be employee to _C or employee new _C, something like that. So the API name should always be unique for every object. Of course, it has to be unique, right? Otherwise, how would we identify one table from another? How would we identify one object from another without it being unique? So if it is unique, that's when we will be able to identify what object it is. Now, why do we need to identify? Because, see, when we are building a table, ultimately we will be writing code, we will be writing configurations, we will be, we will be writing logic to be able to retrieve the data. We will be writing logic to save the data into that table. Like, let's say you have some data and you want to store it in the employee table. Without having a unique API name, how would we tell the database, hey, take this data and save it in this table? Like, how do we tell it? Like, we will be able to only tell it when it has a unique name. So this API name is nothing but the unique name that is given to that object. Okay. So, and in this $_C stands for, it's a custom object. Now you might be getting a question, oh, C stands for custom. Does that mean for standard objects it would be $_S? No. For standard objects, you won't see this $_ notation at all. So the API name of opportunity object is just opportunity, OPPORTUNITY. That's it, opportunity. The API name of account is account, ACCOUNT. Contact is contact. That's it. So there is no contact $_ S or anything like that. For standard objects, it's just the name of that object, whatever opportunity, contact, account. These are the API names for those objects. Whereas for custom objects, it will be appended with $_C. Okay. So if you see an object with account $_C, that means somebody created a custom object named account. It has nothing to do with standard object account. The standard object account has API name as account, but if you're building a custom object, it will have $_C. Okay. Now, let's leave this here. Let's go to our sales app and see what happened. So what we did is we created an object called employee, and while creating the object itself, we created a field. Okay. Let's see how it came up. So I'm going to sales app. Okay. In order to go to sales app, again, I'll tell you all the navigation steps. Right now, our focus or our goal of this session is to understand only the database concept. Okay. Not about how to navigate and all those. I'll talk about those. Okay. But in case if you are curious, you can just click on these dots here. You go to sales app. You see this employees. Okay. There is, along with all this, you are seeing something called employees. Okay. When I click on this, you see something called new. So when you click new, you are seeing employee name, because we only added this name column. While creating the object, Salesforce forced us to add a column called name. And, we added that column, and that's why only this column is appearing. Okay. If I write test1 and just save this, you see automatically what happened? Employee name test1, and it automatically generated an ID for that. Okay. I can click edit and change this to test2. It doesn't matter, but when I save it, the ID still persists. Okay, the ID is still there. So if I go back to employee tab again, click new, I'll create test3 and hit save. So a new ID is generated, like, a new ID. Like every time I'm hitting save, a new ID is generated. Okay. So I can go. So we have test 2 and 3, right? I can click create another test 2. Okay. And save. An ID got generated. And if I go back to employees, you see, there are 2 test 2s here. Like if you are looking at this with a visible eye, like, if you look at it, there are 2 test 2 records. How do we identify? But of course, those are 2 different rows in the table, right? But the name of the employee is same. So how do we identify? We can identify it by looking at, if we open these 2 in 2 different tabs, you see the ID is S5IQAA, this is 5BQAA. So both are test 2, like the name is. So in Salesforce, not only in Salesforce, this should be applicable for anything too. It doesn't matter what columns that you are creating. It doesn't matter what kind of data that you are filling in those columns. For each and every row, Salesforce automatically creates a unique identifier for you. Okay, and that is called as ID. Okay, now let's add these columns. So what did we decide for employee? So we decided we would add, oh man, did I lose it? Okay. So we decided we would add first name. Okay, we already added name, right? We decided we would add email, phone number, address, and yeah, we will add just email, phone number, and designation for now, just to keep it simple. So again, same thing. For now, I have employee name. I want to add more columns to this. Okay, so if I represent this, I have a column name like employee name, and I have something called, so let's see, I have ID and employee name. This is the structure of my table now, right? So we have ID and we have employee name. This is the structure of my table. That's it, right? Employee name and ID. So now we are trying to add more columns to this. Like, so what do we add? We will add designation, a column called designation. Okay. So let me go ahead and add this column. So in order to do this, again, I'll go hit setup. So when I go to setup, I see object manager here. So I click object manager, and then we will search for our employee table. See, there are so many tables already there. You see all these tables here. You see account, activity, asset. The API name doesn't have anything except for our table, except for the employee table that we created. You notice that nothing, all the API names are just single words, no double underscores, nothing. Only the object that we created right now has double underscore C. That means it indicates that all these objects except employee object are standard objects. The employee object is the custom object that we created. Okay. So I go here. Now I'm trying to add fields, right? Remember, this column represents a field. So I will add another field here. You see, employee name. So I'll just add, I'll click on fields and relationships. I'll click new. So we are creating a designation field, right? We'll talk about data types, okay? I'm trying to create a field called designation. So I'll choose text. The name of the field label is designation. Length is 255. You see, now there is a column called designation that got added. Now, if I refresh this, if I go to employees, if I click new, you see both employee name and designation. You see here, employee name and designation. So the moment I keep on adding that, so I'll just now say Shravan developer. So when I hit save, automatically, what happened? Where is this? Yeah, good. You see, we have two columns here. So Shravan and the designation is developer. So we just added another column, and hence, it appears like this. So we added another column here. Now, will this column be applicable for the other records that we created? Of course, yes, but those columns will be empty. If you see here, it has designation column, but the value is empty for the previous records that we created. Okay, so we have employee name. Let's create one more column, just one more column. So again, navigation, I'm navigating quickly, but I will explain you the navigation when we are really talking about building an app and stuff. So let me create another column called email. So if I go back here and refresh this, okay, let me go back to employees. So you see email. So let me click new. Oh, sorry, did I click contact? Sorry, I need to go to employees, right? I click employees tab, click new. You see employee name, designation, and email. So just like employee name, designation, and I'm adding another one called email. And every record, every row, we call it as record. Every record that we are creating is having automatically, it would automatically have an ID associated with it. So, the more I can create millions and millions of rows of data. There are so many tables that will have. So if your company is so big, okay, so you might have million employees working for you. So what will you do? You keep on adding rows. Okay, you keep on adding rows like this, but the table is common. So, I'll just say test 5, designation, email is sps.com. Okay, so you have all the information that is stored. So, the more columns that you are going to add, all the columns are going to show up on the layout. And you see, these are nothing but the rows. So we created five records of employees. So we loaded five employee records, and every record has a unique ID associated with it. Okay. And this is represented in the database like this. So we employees tab here. We have an ID that's automatically generated. We have employee name, designation, and email. These are the 3 columns that we created, and you can add so many rows of the data. Okay. Now let's talk about a small concept called metadata versus data. Again, you will hear the word metadata a lot. So what is metadata here? You see this piece, ID, email, this, and these pieces, like this is called metadata. All the information that you fill is called data. Okay, what do you mean by that? Like, okay, I'll show you what exactly it is. You see, this is the metadata piece of it. Okay, so the object, employee object, and all the fields that you create. This is called metadata. So metadata is nothing but, not to confuse you, metadata has so many definitions. It is nothing but data that contains data or data about data. Okay, so metadata is nothing but, you see this, you are creating these fields and everything. So what is happening? Even these, like, the field name, API name, data type, all these have to be stored somewhere, right? Again, forget about that. Just metadata is nothing but the definition, the columns that you create, the object that you create, the configurations that you do are called metadata. The actual data that you create is called data. For example, here, like, you see, this is all metadata. The columns, all the columns, the object that you created, all these are metadata. The actual rows, the actual information that you're showing in is called data. You know that, right? So the information that we are keying in is data. Let's say you're signing up for Facebook. When you are signing up for Facebook, it would ask your first name, last name. So the fields that you see, the fields or the columns that you see are called, it is metadata. But the actual data that you are keying in, your first name, last name, the date, we call it as data entry. The actual data that you are creating is called data. And the configurations that you do, or any configurations or customizations that you do, is called as metadata. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Now, one question here. Now, so this is the structure. So let's say there is a company where they wanted to maintain the employee information. So what we did, we created a table. We created an object called employee, and the API name is employee_C. We created some fields, employee name, designation, and email. So we created these fields and we created rows. The primary keys are getting created. All good. Now the requirement comes. The business owner or the owner of the company asks the Salesforce admin or developer, or let's say the question, there is a BA also in this project. They ask, hey, you know what? We want to capture the employee salary as well. So how would you do that? Like, what would you do if you want to capture the employee salary? What do we do? Can we add in that? Sorry?
another field?
Yes, that's good. So we add another field called salary, right? So we add another field called salary, and then we store that information. Now, see, the thing is, if you are a regular developer, if you are a developer, if somebody, or if you are a BA, if somebody asks, hey, I want to capture the salary, you're good. That your answer is exactly correct. We will add a column called salary and we store it. But if you are really thinking about comprehensively, if you're really thinking about future use and all, the next question that you would ask would be, okay, I'm happy to capture the salary, but do you just want to capture the current salary of the employee, or do you want to capture periodical salary? Because say today an employee might be getting 60K, but next year the employee might be getting 65K. The year after, the employee might be getting 70K. So do you want to capture, when the business owner asks you, see, that's how you need to remember in the business requirement gathering, the thing that I told you, business analysts use various techniques and challenge the business owners to get the right information out of them. The business owner might have said, hey, I need to capture the salary. But the business owner or the person who gave you the requirement might not be thinking all the scenarios. The person just asked, hey, let's capture the salary. That's good. If the requirement, then you would ask the business owner, hey, do you just want to capture the current salary? So we can create a simple column called current salary. And here we can add a simple column called current salary and just enter the salary. That's good. That's enough. If the business owner says, yes, I don't care about what their past salaries and all, I just care about the current salary of the employee. So you create a column called current salary here and you enter the information. Good, great, the requirement is done and all. But it is the responsibility, even as a developer, if you get that, take a pause and think, okay, the salaries are not fixed, they are not permanent, they keep on changing. So you need to ask, do you want to capture the salary, the current salary, or do you want to capture, or do you want to have the facility in the system, or, do you want the system to be built in such a way that you will be able to capture periodical salary, like from 2016 January to 2018 January, this person's salary was 50,000. From 2017 to 2019, this person's salary was 60,000. From this date to this date, this person's salary was this much. So you need to give the option. Then the business person might say, we don't have so much time. We need to get this requirement delivered so quickly. We only have half a day time to be able to deliver this. Then you'll be like, you know what, let's make a compromise, only go with current salary. But if the business owner says, yes, we do have the budget and we do have the salary, we do have the budget and we really need the system to be comprehensive. So build the feature to be able to capture the periodical salary so that the system is so sophisticated. So these are all the things that needs to be taken into consideration. I'm just giving you a simple example, but you can use this example in so many ways. This is what happens every day in IT, where there will be a requirement and it can be done in numerous ways, but the what option that you choose depends on, do we have enough time? Will the project allow you to do that? If the project scope is smaller and you have to deliver it right away, creating that simple column called current salary and letting the business owner know, hey, we will only be able to capture the current salary. Letting them know that is good. But if the project allows you to, there is some scope, and then the business owner also, let's build it comprehensive. Yeah, we do have budget and we do have some dev time available to do that. Yeah, you will be able to do that, what you call the whole comprehensive way of capturing the salary from periodically and all that. Okay? Does that make sense? Guys, whatever I told you about that, does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's talk about how do we build, how do we capture, how do we build the data? Now, I'm not going to create a current salary field because you know already, if you want, you can go back to what you call click setup, go to object manager, choose a currency field, name it as current salary, click accept all the defaults and save. If you come here, you will automatically see the current salary field and you can capture it. That's it. I don't want to create that. But I want to build the actual solution of capturing the periodical salary. Okay. How do we do that? Does anybody have any idea? Can I do that within the same table? Can I do that periodical salary calculation within the same table? Okay. Now, here is where the concept of relationships come into picture. Okay. Now, see, Salesforce uses a database type. Salesforce uses, I think in the backend, they use Oracle database. Again, I think I remember reading it somewhere. In the backend, Salesforce, of course, Salesforce has data centers, and in their data centers, they have to use some kind of database, right, to be able to store all this information. I've heard that they use Oracle database. I might be wrong because I don't think they will reveal all those details, what they use and stuff. I heard it's Oracle. Okay. So Salesforce uses, we don't care whether it's Oracle, SQL, whatever it is, but what we care about is they use a database concept called relational database. Okay. So what is relational database? So in order to solve the scenario that we have, that's where relationships come in place. Okay. Will one employee always have only one salary, or will the employee have periodical salary? Like if the employee is working long enough, will the employee have periodical salary? So like we talked about, usually employees will have periodical salary. Of course, everybody wants hikes, everybody wants bonus and everything. So usually employees, so for first 2 years, they might have one salary. From later onwards, from after that, they might have different salary. After that, so if an employee works long enough for 20 years, within the 20 years, the employee might have had 20 or 15 different salaries at different points. That means one employee will have multiple salaries. You know what I mean? Like one employee, each employee can have multiple salaries associated with that. See, that is the whole idea of relational database. Okay. If at all we want to represent that, like, if you want to represent that within the same table here, within the same employee table here, it's hard. We cannot, we can do that, but it will again, it will mess up a lot many things. Whereas what we can do is, we can, okay, let's represent that in Excel. Okay, let me just remove all this account and all those. Delete. Okay, so we have employees here. Okay, let me represent this employee table in a simpler way, in a very simpler way. So it would be, I'm just using ID as one to make things easier. I'll say Shravan, developer, email is. So I'll just use ID as 2. Of course, Salesforce ID is a gibberish number, gibberish big 18-digit number. Just for our understanding, I'm using it as a simple number, simple unique number. Okay, so this is how our table is, right? So we have our employee table exactly like this in Salesforce, except that the ID is a bigger number, but we are using a simple ID here. Okay, now our goal is, so if you want to do a current salary, if our requirement is to capture current salary, we'll just simply do the current salary like 50,000, 500, like. So we can just do the current salary like this. I wish these are the real salaries. So we can just do but what we are trying to do is we are saying this is no good. This is no good because we are only able to capture the current salary, but we want a comprehensive system where we should be able to capture periodic salary. Okay. Now, let's create, because of course, in order to do that, let's create another table called employee salary. Okay. Let's create another table called employee salary. Remember, any table that you create, any row, no matter whatever table it is, whatever row it is, any table, any row that you create, Salesforce is going to have automatically create a ID for you. So, no, this table will automatically have this ID automatically, like, ID column would be there. Now, what are the columns that we need to have? Like, in order to capture the salary, and remember, we are trying to capture periodic salary. So, can you tell me the columns that we need to have? I'll just say start date, end date, amount. Okay, so that I'll just say 1/1/2016. Sorry. 1/1/2016 to 1/1/2017. The salary is 50,000. 1/1/2017 to, or I'll just say 2/1. 1/1/2018. The salary is 60,000. You see, in order to represent the periodic salary, I want to have a start date, an end date, and the amount. Because for that start date and end date, what is the amount? Okay, and of course, every row that I'm gonna create, it will create a gibberish ID, every row. Now, what is it? Am I missing anything here? Like, is there an important component that I'm missing here?
Employee.
So that's good. So whose salaries are these? Like, from Jan 16 to Jan 17, 50,000 is fine. 17 to 18, 60. Like, but for whom? Okay, I'll just say employee. Okay. Now, how do I get those employees? You see here, I'll get 2 from here. Okay, 2. So what does this indicate? Like, look at the employee table. 2 is Saroj. So what does this indicate? So this table, now we established a relationship between employee table and employee salary table using this column. You know what I mean? Because you see here we have the employee ID. Employee ID as 2, and number 2 is associated with this employee. So in the employee salary, what are we doing? We are saying this employee number 2, okay, has a salary of 50,000 between January 16 to January 17. This employee number 2 has a salary of 60,000 between 2017 and 2000. So we established a relationship between employee table and employee salary table using this column. Okay? Does it make sense? So instead of telling who the employee and all those things, we are just giving the ID of the employee. The ID is nothing but the primary key. We are just putting the ID of the employee here so that we are clearly being indicated that, okay, for this employee, this is the salary. Now, see, this row has an ID of its own. Like, before this came into picture, just before this came into picture, every row, remember, every row automatically, this row has an ID of its own. But in order to link this table, the employee salary table with employee table, what are we doing? We created a column. We named it as employee, and all we are doing is, so what does this mean? Okay, let me just copy this as well. I'll just say ZA. So these are the ID. I'll just say 2. So what does this indicate? So this indicates that these 2 rows. So in the employee table, if you see the ID, one is for Shravan. So Shravan has a salary of 50,000 between Jan 16 to Jan 17. Shravan has a salary of 60,000 from 17 to 18. Saroj has this salary. Saroj has this salary. So it is indicating, like, this column is basically representing. So we establish something called one-to-many relationship. One employee can have numerous rows of data in here. One employee can have multiple salaries. So what we established here is one-to-many relationship. Now, it doesn't mean these rows have to be exactly same. I mean, when I say exactly same, you see, it can be like this too. So it doesn't mean like, all the records that belong to one employee have to be in the same place. No, you keep on adding the rows wherever you want. You keep on adding the rows. Like you just go and adding the rows. But by choosing which employee number, you are clearly establishing a relationship between these two tables. So now these two tables are related to each other. So employee is called the parent table and employee salary is called the child table. Okay, employee is the parent table and employee salary is the child table. So how are they connected? They are connected using this relationship field. So the employee field on the child table is acting as a relationship field to connect employee and employee salary. So using that field, see, if this field doesn't exist, both are independent table. There is no relationship between employee and employee salary. Like, both are like totally independent tables. But now, what if you create a simple, instead of a relationship field, you can create a simple text field and start writing like this. So you can start writing like this. But is it useful? Like if you are just writing the text names here, if you are simply writing the text name, even this table indicates, oh, okay, the employee name Saroj has this salary. But why do we have to do that? We are already maintaining a table called employee table where all the information about the employee is there for us. So why to again create a text column and make mistakes? What if instead of, you see, while I was typing, I typed like this. Just because I typed this, that means the data integrity is lost. While I was typing that name, I made a mistake actually. Accidental, I made a mistake. Now, if you make a mistake like this, you wouldn't never know whose salary. Like imagine if you're a company with 1 million employees, will you be able to find out, that there was a spelling mistake made and all that? No, because of this, the data integrity is lost. Instead of that, you already have all the employees listed in the table. So all you do is, you can keep the name as employee name or whatever you want. So instead of that, you will just use the ID here. So what is the ID? 2. So you'll just use number 2 here, number 1 here, number 3 here. So number 2, 3, 1, in whatever order. The order doesn't matter. So here, by looking at this, you are clearly saying, okay, employee and employee salary are related to each other, and this row is indicating this row is indicating the salary of employee 2 between Jan 16 and Jan 7. What is employee 2? You can go and check it. We are calling it as reference field. So because see, when you get number 2, you will go and refer number 2 and you will, oh, this is Saroj salary between this time and this time is this. So that's how you will be able to identify. Now in the UI, what can you do? In the UI, when you are looking at an employee table, you can query when you are looking at Saroj's record in the UI, you are building an app. Forget about Salesforce. You are building an app somewhere in some technology. What would you do? You will have an employee record. On the employee record, you will display all the information like employee name and all. And then you will query, hey, you know what? Give me the employee salary where employee name is equal to 2. What would it do? Out of so many rows, it would only return you this row and this row. Because you are querying, because you are looking at this record, you will say, hey, give me the employee salary belonging to employee number 2, and it would only query those 2 records, and you will display those 2 records in a visible format, so that when you are looking that record in the UI, you clearly know, okay, this is Saroj, She's a business analyst. This is her email and all. And then you have employee salaries. She earned 50,000 between this period, 60,000 in this period. So in one screen, you'll be able to see all that. Just because you are seeing something on a single screen doesn't mean they all belong to the same object. No, they might belong to different objects or different tables. But in order to organize the data, you clearly, pull all the, you query all the data or information from various sources and you put it here. You see, you can look at one example here. Enterprise car rental. You see, enterprise car rental has two contacts. Okay, so we created two contacts. It's the same thing. One account can have multiple contacts associated, but when you're looking at one account, what is it doing? It is pulling those two contacts belonging to this account and displaying in a single screen. So the information belong to account is here, and all the related child records are here. So when you're looking at it, how does it get you this? So when you're looking at this related tab, in the backend, Salesforce is querying, give me all the contacts where the account ID is this. Just like here, give me the employee salary where the employee ID is 2. So these two records will be queried and displayed. Okay. Does it make sense, guys? Anybody, any questions? So this is basically relational database. So whenever you're designing, whenever you're building applications, you need to ask questions yourself. Will one table be sufficient? Or do I have to create another table and link them? How do we, so relational database really helps you to organize the data in a proper way. So you can write queries, you can pull the data, you can display it anywhere. So, that is the basic concept. Again, while we are building the actual app, we will talk about some more things too. But this is the basic idea behind, how a database work and how relationships are, tables are connected or objects are connected with this. Any questions? Yes.
Whose responsibility is to do all this? Database model and developers are.
That's a good question. That's a good question. See, one good thing about working in Salesforce is you don't have special database administrators. You don't have a special database team. If you're regularly working in Java or .NET world, as a developer, you will only be responsible for writing the code, the server-side code or something. And in order to make any changes in the database, you will have database administrators. But in Salesforce, we as an admin or a developer, either it would be created by administrator or a developer. See, we tend to differentiate these are development tasks and these are admin tasks, but those are tightly bound actually. So if I am working on a project and I will be given, if I am given the requirements, as a developer, I will be creating these tables. Sometimes the administrator will be creating these tables, establishing the relationships and everything. So it is either Salesforce administrator or Salesforce developer who would be creating, and we won't have a separate database team or DBAs or nothing like that. It's up to us to do the whole thing, which is a good thing, right? So you don't that is the only reason why. Even if some data have to be loaded in the production system, we don't have DBAs taking DBA approval, nothing like that. As a developer or admin, we will be doing the data uploads, data updates in production too, which is good because in a way we get to learn more about how databases work, how relational database, what is the primary key, second, all those. It will give us a good chance to learn about all those things. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, I want you to do one thing. In your org, okay? In your org, create the same thing, employee table, and also the employee. I didn't show you how to create the relationship field, but I want you to try, okay? I want you to create the employee table, employee salary table, and display employee, I want you to, when I go to the employee record, I want to see their salaries as well. Okay, try. We will talk about those topics. We will build an app. We will talk about those topics later. But I want you to try creating the employee table, employee salary table. And when I look at an single employee record, I want to see the periodic salaries of that specific employee. If I go to the different employee, like it should be within the single page, I should be able to see both. Okay. I think probably I'll call that as the exercise. It's not hard, but I want you to try that. So that if you try that, when we are building it the next time, in case you are stuck somewhere, those things would become more clear for you. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? Nobody has any questions? Okay. Yeah. I will. Yeah. Tomorrow we will have class at 6 p.m. EST. So I'll send the invites before. Tomorrow we will actually, if you guys have created the employee salary table and, if do you guys mind if I ask you to share your screen? Let's say if somebody have done it, I'll give you the presenter control and just be prepared for it. It'd be a good exercise too, because, even if you go and work for a real job, I'm sure people will ask you to present you, people will ask you to demo and all. So that'd be a good exercise too. So if somebody has done this exercise, if you let me know that, hey, I have finished the exercise, whatever you have, I'll make you the presenter so you can share your screen and show what you have done. See, everybody is learning. There is nothing right, wrong, dumb, nothing like that. Even if you make a mistake, it's good. You're making a mistake now rather than in real time. So it's a good thing that you're making a mistake here. So feel free to present it so, you can learn and everybody else can learn too. Even somebody didn't do the exercise, they can learn too. So yeah, let's do that for like 5 minutes. If everybody got this exercise right, I'll directly move on to app creation. If you still have questions, we'll take first 10 minutes to be able to create, I'll create the employee salary table myself, establish the relationship, show it on the same screen, and then we will move on to our actual project app. We'll build a conference management app. So we'll move on to building that app. Okay. All right, guys.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I will see you guys tomorrow at 6 p.m. EST.
Okay.